Okay, let's dig into this. If you're working anywhere near the life sciences world today, you know things are just moving incredibly fast.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, AI is changing the game, the way companies connect with patients, with doctors. It's all evolving.
Yeah, and just, trying to keep complex teams coordinated across different departments, that alone feels like a huge challenge these days.
Totally. And all that speed, that complexity, it puts, well, immense pressure on the technology companies rely on.
Right. Those tools we've used for years to manage relationships, the CRMs, they're suddenly being asked to do a whole lot more, things they weren't really designed for initially.
Exactly. Which brings us to this deep dive. We're looking at a really interesting source today that examines how one of the big tech players, Salesforce, is kind of shifting its role here.
And how that compares to another key player, one you definitely know if you're in this industry, Viva.
Yeah, the source makes a pretty bold argument, actually. It suggests Salesforce is moving beyond being just a CRM.
That tool for sales calls and contacts.
Right, and becoming something more like, well, like an operating system,
Mhm.
and an OS for the whole life sciences team.
An OS.
Yeah.
Okay. And it contrasts that with Viva, which the source says is uh, continuing to really hone and refine its specialized applications. Staying in its lane, maybe?
Sort of, yeah, refining what it does best. So for you listening, what we want to do today is really unpack what that shift OS versus app actually
We'll
means.
pull out the key differences the source highlights, look at why it even matters for you, and hopefully help you get a clearer handle on these changes, without getting lost in the tech speak.
We really want to make these concepts straightforward.
Definitely. So let's start with the basics. CRM systems, they've been vital in life sciences for ages, haven't they?
Oh, absolutely crucial. Organizing interactions with doctors, tracking sales activity, managing territories, handling all that compliance data. Salesforce and Viva have both been huge here. They really define the space.
But the source we're looking at argues that this traditional CRM model,
Yeah.
it's hitting some limits.
Right. Because of those pressures we mentioned, you need much faster AI adoption everywhere. You need real coordination between, say, field teams and medical science liaisons.
You need actual patient centricity, not just talking about it.
Exactly, across every single touch point. And you need to manage engagement smoothly across tons of different systems, different data types. It gets complicated fast.
So the argument is that a CRM built mainly for those core sales tasks, even a really good one, might struggle to stretch that far.
That's what the source suggests. It's hard to adapt when you need to pull in real-time data from everywhere and automate processes across the entire organization, not just one department.
Okay, so this is where that metaphor comes in handy, the one the source uses. They describe Viva as being like a really well-designed app.
Yeah, exactly. Like a great app on your phone does one thing or a few related things really, really well.
And the source points to Viva's strengths here.
Definitely. Things like pre-built call reports specifically for pharma, sample tracking, those modular content libraries for approved materials, specialized workflows for MLR review, medical, legal, regulatory, which is just non-negotiable,
Super critical.
and closed-loop marketing features, territory management. For those specific structured tasks, that out-of-the-box tailored functionality is a major plus, simple and effective for the job.
Makes sense. And sometimes that's exactly what you need.
Uh-huh.
But the source also points to a potential downside of that focused approach.
Right. They argue that as things get more complex, you need data from EHRs, from patient support programs. You want AI woven through everything. That app structure, while efficient for its purpose, can start to feel a bit limiting, a bit boxed in.
Okay. And that's the contrast. The source positions Salesforce as acting more like an OS,
Yeah.
an operating system.
Yeah. Think about your computer's OS. It's the foundation. It connects everything. It lets different programs run and share information.
So the source says this OS approach lets organizations pull in data from basically anywhere, not just the CRM.
That's the idea. And automate logic across multiple functions, sales, medical, patient services, marketing, and deploy AI agents like this agent force concept they talk about
Yeah.
that can actually do things autonomously based on rules.
And a key part of this, according to the source, is flexibility. You can customize things, connect different tools, without being totally locked into one vendor's way of doing things.
Exactly. Less vendor lock-in, more ability to tailor things yourself or connect other services. Plus, and this is crucial for life sciences, that foundation has trust, security, audit trails built in to handle compliance like HIPAA and GDPR.
Okay, so summarizing the source's metaphor. App is specialized, efficient in its scope, but maybe bounded. OS is infrastructure, flexible, built for connecting complex pieces and adapting.
That's a good way to put it.
Now, it's really important, and the source stresses this. Salesforce isn't ditching CRM, it's building on it, expanding it.
Right. It's an expansion. And the source highlights three main ways this is happening to enable that OS-like function.
This is the first one.
It's all about unifying the data. They call it data cloud. Think of it as a system designed to pull information from all those different places.
Like electronic health records, insurance claims, patient programs, pharmacy data, all that stuff.
Exactly. Pulls it all together into one clean, real-time view.
Okay, let's simplify that. For you, the listener, dealing with data chaos. This sounds like it means no more endless cleaning of duplicate doctor records.
That's the goal. One single profile for each HCP, each patient, each account, no matter where the data came from. It even helps sort and group them automatically based on recent activity or whatever's important.
And crucially, the source says this unified data isn't just for looking at reports later.
No, that's the key difference. This unified, real-time data powers everything else. Every interaction, every workflow happening on that Salesforce OS uses this constantly updated data layer. It's the brain, kind of.
Got it. Which leads nicely to the second point, right? AI that does more than just show insights.
Precisely. AI that supports smarter workflows. The source talks about tools like Einstein Copilot and this Agent Force idea.
So moving AI from, here's something interesting I found, to what?
To AI actually helping take action. Einstein Copilot, as the source describes it, is like having a helper right there in your workflow. It suggests the best content to share with the doctor right now, based on everything known about them, or it prompts the next best step for supporting a patient.
Makes the human smarter, basically.
Yeah, more efficient, more informed. And then Agent Force, according to the source, goes a step further. It's a framework for AI agents that can autonomously trigger workflows or complete tasks based on rules.
Like what? Give me an example from the source.
Okay, like automatically routing a medical question to the right expert, or maybe adjusting a sales rep's visit schedule on the fly because a doctor's access to a certain drug just changed, or some new clinical data just dropped.
Wow, okay. So the impact there. Humans aren't manually acting on every single little alert or suggestion.
That's the potential the source highlights. Agent Force handles the routine, rule-based actions. It frees up your experts, sales, medical, whoever, to focus on the tricky stuff, the exceptions, the things that really need that human touch and judgment.
Makes sense. Okay, what's the third element of this transformation?
This one's about what they call composable services for end-to-end orchestration. Sounds a bit technical.
Yeah, break that down for us.
It basically means Salesforce provides the tools to connect all the different systems and apps your teams already use across the company, so they work together like one smooth machine.
Okay, connecting the dots. The source gave examples, right?
It did. MuleSoft was mentioned. Think of that as the digital plumbing. It connects systems together, whether it's EHRs, finance systems, supply chain, even pulling data from Viva, making sure data flows where it needs to, securely.
Yeah, the integration piece. What else?
Slack, which lots of teams use for chat, right? The source positions it as the collaboration hub, where you make quick decisions, share files, but importantly, it keeps those conversations linked to the actual work happening in the connected systems.
So collaboration in context.
Exactly. And then Tableau for visualization, taking all that complex data from Data Cloud and turning it into charts and dashboards that anyone can understand quickly. You know, helping a rep prioritize visits or letting medical see which messages are resonating.
So putting MuleSoft, Slack, Tableau, and the core platform together. The source argues this makes Salesforce more than just a CRM. It's an intelligent system.
That's the term they use, yeah. Helping the whole organization stay in sync and react faster.
All right, so that's the picture the source paints of Salesforce evolving. Now, let's be balanced. How does the source explain why Viva's approach is different?
Well, first, it reiterates Viva's strengths. It excels at those structured CRM tasks, managing regulated content compliantly, logging those HCP interactions meticulously. It's the leader there for a reason.
What it was built for.
Precisely. But the source argues that because it wasn't initially designed as that broad, open OS-type platform, it faces some challenges when you need that really wide cross-functional orchestration.
Such as? What limitations does the source point out?
Things like a more closed architecture. The source suggests this can make it harder to easily connect to lots of real-time data sources outside the Viva ecosystem, or to deeply integrate AI agents across all business processes, not just within specific Viva modules.
And customization.
The source says unique workflow customizations often need Viva's own professional services, which suggests, maybe less flexibility compared to building on an open platform where you might have more options.
Okay, and how does new functionality typically get added, according to the source?
More often through bolt-on modules for specific functions, rather than building on a set of underlying extensible services like you might find in an OS model. They call it potential application sprawl.
And that true 360-degree view of the customer across all channels, omni-channel engagement.
The source argues that achieving that often needs extra custom work or more apps, rather than being a native capability of the core architecture.
So while Viva's definitely innovating, the source mentions Viva Link for data, modular vault apps.
Right. They acknowledge Viva is evolving, but the core argument presented in this source is that Viva's focus remains squarely on refining its specific apps, its areas of strength.
Rather than becoming that broad, flexible OS infrastructure.
Exactly. An infrastructure the source believes is increasingly necessary to handle the complexity we're seeing, connecting both the commercial and medical sides of the house seamlessly.
Seeing this in action probably helps. Did the source give real-world examples of these differences?
It did, yeah. Some good comparisons of how workflows might look using the OS approach versus what they describe as the app approach.
Okay, like what?
Well, take field force enablement helping sales reps. On the Salesforce OS, using something like Agentforce, the source says a rep's call plan could be updated almost instantly.
Based on what?
On real-time changes, like maybe a doctor suddenly gets formulary access for their drug or their prescribing habits shift, or maybe even based on the rep's own recent performance data. It's dynamic.
Okay, and the contrast with the Viva app approach, according to the source.
Typically, call plans get updated much less frequently, maybe quarterly, and it often involves more manual analysis and segmentation to build those plans, so that real-time agility is the key difference highlighted.
Got it. What about another area? Medical affairs.
Medical inquiry triage. So when a doctor or patient submits a question, with the Salesforce OS, the source suggests AI tools like Einstein Copilot can automate a lot of that, handle the initial response, gather info, and only escalate it to a human expert if it hits a specific safety flag or needs real complex judgment.
And the comparison.
The Viva app approach described relies more on manual routing, maybe using some static keyword filters. It just requires more human intervention from the start.
Okay, one more. Patient support, maybe?
Yeah, patient access monitoring. The source describes the Salesforce OS using Data Cloud, pulling in all sorts of dynamic data payer info, copay program status, maybe even adherence data from wearables or apps.
And using that data to do what?
To dynamically tweak the patient's support or education plan. If adherence drops or their insurance changes, the system can trigger an adjustment automatically.
And how does the source contrast that with Viva?
It says the Viva app, while great for managing the programs it directly runs, usually doesn't have native access to that broad mix of external real-time payer or adherence data without custom connectors. So it's harder to automatically adjust strategies based on that live outside information.
And the source made it clear these aren't just futuristic ideas.
No, they emphasize that. They mention clients, specifically named CI Health, are actually deploying these kinds of integrated automated workflows today. So it's happening now.
Good to know. And before we wrap, there were some practical questions addressed too, right? Like compliance. Big one in this industry.
Right. Huge. And the source says, yes, this OS approach is built with compliance in mind. Tools like Salesforce Shield, strong audit trails, they're designed to help organizations meet regulations like AKA and GDPR.
Okay. And can these systems even work together? Viva and Salesforce?
Absolutely. The source confirms that. Many companies use Viva for its strengths, like Vault for content management, and then use Salesforce for the broader data integration, analytics, and that cross-functional automation layer. It's not necessarily an either-or.
Depends on the strategy.
Exactly. Where do you need the specialized app and where do you need the overarching OS?
And deployment time. Does switching to an OS mean years of disruption?
Not necessarily, according to the source. Because it's composable, you can tackle pieces. They reference CI Health deploying specific solutions built on this approach quite fast, like in 90 days for some projects, so it can be incremental.
Okay, so let's pull back for the big picture takeaway from this source. It sounds like a pretty strong argument that success in life sciences now demands thinking beyond just traditional CRM.
That's the core message. Moving beyond thinking in terms of separate apps for separate jobs and towards building on a foundational platform, an operating system, something that can connect everything and adapt quickly.
Because the capabilities needed now connecting data from everywhere,
Yeah.
automating across departments, scaling without getting stuck.
The source argues those are best enabled by that OS approach.
And again, respecting Viva's strengths, the source definitely makes a case that if you're aiming for that really adaptive, real-time, data-driven model across your whole organization,
Yeah.
you need to look beyond just CRM.
Towards that more integrated foundational platform thinking.
Exactly. Now, we focus today on life sciences, obviously, using this source as comparison. But this whole idea, moving from siloed apps to a more connected OS, that feels bigger than just one industry, doesn't it?
I think so too. The
Yeah.
pressure of rapid change, complex data, the need for cross-functional connection that's happening everywhere.
Right. So maybe a final thought for you, our listener, based purely on what this source suggests. Given that speed and complexity, what does this distinction the source makes between relying on a specialized app versus building on a flexible operating system imply about how technology might need to be structured in any complex regulated field you encounter?
It certainly gives you a different lens to look through, thinking about the future of enterprise technology. Definitely something to consider.